Okay, so what we're going to do is just get right into practice. And a couple of things to keep in mind before we start. I'm going to be looking in the chat, so you can go ahead and write things in the chat. But a couple of things really quick. First thing is that this is going to be listening practice for the for academic listening. So there'll be some questions that are like TOEFL, but there's going to be other questions that are maybe like Duolingo or like PTE. The goal is for us to basically practice listening. So we're practicing listening to improve. That's the goal. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is that we're going to warm up together. I'm going to give you a couple warm-up questions and we'll do them together. And then I'm going to play the questions and then you just answer them. And at the end, I am going to go over the answers together and we'll talk about it together if you're still here. And the last thing, if you like this type of practice, because it's going to be a lot of practice really, if you like this, please comment more practice in the comments. Also, I broke my finger, so you might see this weird little bandage. Okay, I am going to just get right into the practice basically. So we're going to start with a warm-up, just so we're on this kind of same page and you know what to do. So here we go. I am going to, I'll be looking at the questions, so don't worry about that. If you have questions in the chat, you can go ahead and ask me. So this is the first lecture number 1 that we're going to talk about. And let's do a couple of warm-up questions. Again, not like the TOEFL, just regular academic practice. This is going to be called listen and type. It is what it sounds like. You listen to a passage. I'm going to play it 3 times. I'm going to play this short sentence 3 times, and I want you to type what you hear. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to play this 3 times, and I want you to type everything you hear. Okay, here we go. Let me play the first part. All right, here it is.
Geology is the study of Earth's crust and the processes that have shaped its surface throughout history.
All right. How was that? Did you hear that? Were you able to hear that okay? Let me know in the chat if you did. And we're going to listen to it again. Okay, here's the second time. Listen carefully.
Geology is the study of Earth's crust and the processes that have shaped its surface throughout history.
That's number 2. Make sure you're typing everything down, or you got a pencil and a piece of paper and you're writing everything down. Let's listen one more time.
Geology is the study of Earth's crust and the processes that have shaped its surface throughout history.
All right. How did you do? Were you able to hear everything? Let me know in the chat. You can actually type it in the chat if you want. I'm about to show you the answer. These I'm going to give you the answers right away. In the next part, I'm going to give you the answers at the end. This one, I'm going to give you the answers right now. Geology is the study of Earth's crust and the processes that help shape its surface throughout history. So the goal, again, remember, is not to do just TOEFL practice. The goal here is to practice your listening skills and to practice listening to academic passages. Let's do another one. One more sentence like this. Here we go. And let me get my trusty audio file here. Okay. And sorry, one second. Okay. Here we go.
Throughout history.
Okay, so that was the end of it. Here's the next sentence.
Heat escaping from the interior provides energy for the formation of our planet's mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and even the continents and ocean basins themselves.
All right. Pretty hard, right? A little bit longer this time. Pretty hard. Type everything you hear. Let me play it again.
Heat escaping from the interior provides energy for the formation of our planet's mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and even the continents and ocean basins themselves.
All right. That was the second time. Hopefully you're busy typing. If you can do it on 2 times, let me know in the chat. You can write it out right there. Sorry, I'm looking and seeing what the comments are so I can respond to you guys. Sorry about that. Okay. Next one. One more time. Here we go.
Provides energy for the formation of our planet. Heat escaping from the interior provides energy for the formation of our planet's mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and even the continents and ocean basins themselves.
All right. How is that? What do you think? Could you hear everything? So I'm going to give you the answer. Let me get right to it. The next one is going to be heat escaping from the interior provides energy for the formation of our planets, mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and even the continents and ocean basins themselves. Lots of difficult vocabulary there. Again, academic listening, right? So we're practicing what you would get in a university. You have continents, ocean basins, things you probably don't say every day, right? So this is a little bit difficult, so it makes TOEFL hard. So now we're warmed up. So much fun. Let me know in the chat what you think of that little practice. Now we're going to do a short lecture. So just so you guys know, let me just give you a quick rundown. What we're going to do is that you're going to do this short lecture. It's going to take about 2 minutes, answer a couple questions, and you're going to do another short lecture and answer a couple questions. And that's it. The whole thing will probably take about 15 minutes. And then at the end, I'll be here and you can ask me anything you want. So just so you know, be about 15 minutes. All right, here we go. Let's listen to a lecture. And your goal here is to take some notes. And this is all about geology. All right, so let's listen to the lecture right now.
Directions. Now listen to a part of a talk in an astronomy class. All right, now, geology is the study of Earth's crust and the processes that have shaped its surface throughout history. Heat escaping from the interior provides energy for the formation of our planet's mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and even the continents and ocean basins themselves. But not until the middle of the 20th century did geologists succeed in understanding just how these landforms are created. Now, plate tectonics is a theory that explains how slow motions within the mantle of Earth move large segments of crust, resulting in a gradual drifting of the continents, as well as the formation of mountains and other large-scale geological features. Plate tectonics is a concept as basic to geology as evolution by natural selection is to biology, or gravity is to understanding the orbits of planets. Looking at it from a different perspective, plate tectonics is a mechanism for Earth to transport heat efficiently from the interior, where it has accumulated, out to space. It is a cooling system for the planet. All planets develop a heat transfer process as they evolve. Mechanisms may differ from that on Earth as a result of chemical makeup and other constraints. Question 1. What is
All right, so that was the listening. Now here is going to be the first question. Now these first 3 questions are true or false. So there are no true or false questions in the TOEFL listening. This is, IELTS has some true or false questions in the reading section. This is just to practice your academic listening skills. So again, just practice. Here we go. First true or false question, number 1. Geologists understood how landforms were created since the early 17th century. Is that true or false? I'm going to give you 15 seconds for each of these. Here we go. All right, next one. Plate tectonics is a foundational concept in the study of geology. All right, next one, number 3. Planets transfer heat the same way as Earth. Let me play this. Okay. I see people commenting false, true. Good. Keep them going. I'm going to answer these at the end, okay? So I'll give you the answers after we do this, okay? And the reason is because I want you to focus on what you just heard. All right, here we go. Now, the next part is multiple choice. These questions are a bit more difficult. These are more like TOEFL questions, and you will have 30 seconds to answer each. Here we go. Question 1. What is the lecture mainly about? All right, let's go to number 2. What does the professor imply about plate tectonics when he says this?
Plate tectonics is a concept as basic to geology as evolution by natural selection is to biology or gravity is to understanding the orbits of planets.
And that's a typo, so when she says this. When she says this. All right, here we go. All right, so how was it? How'd you do? We're going to move on to another type of question, which is fill in the blank, which is where we're going to listen to the same passage again, and I want you to put in vocabulary words that are missing. But before we do that, I'm going to give you the answers. I think I'm doing this right now for the first time, and I'm thinking like, okay, probably they want the answers, so they want it right now. So let me give you the answers right now. Let me just bring them up here, and okay, here we go. So let's see here. So for the true or false questions, let's go to those first. So for the true or false questions, there has been only one mass extinction in Earth's history. That is false. Okay. Now I'm going to explain this later. Okay. So I don't want to explain everything now because I want you to practice. But I'll explain this after. We'll have an open question and answer. You can ask me anything, but I'll just give you the answers first. 1 is false. Number 2 is false. Is this right? Am I looking? Sorry, we're looking at the wrong one. I gave you the answers to the next one. Hopefully you didn't see it. Okay, so this one here, geologists understood how landforms were created, yet people are saying in the comments, sorry about that. Okay, so number 1 is false, that they knew about landforms in the 17th century. Number 2 is true, foundational concept. And number 3 is false, okay? That planets transfer heat the same way as Earth does. For the multiple choice questions, the first one was the lecture mainly about is B. And for number 2, the answer is C. And again, I'm going to explain all of these at the end. And so we'll have a Q&A and I'll talk about them at the end. But I wanted to make sure you saw the answers now because I'm sure you're curious. Okay, so let me go back to the next little activity. This is the last activity for this passage. This is where you listen and you have to basically fill in the blank. This is the same transcript you just listened to. Hopefully this is big enough that you can see it. I don't know how much bigger I can make it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we're going to listen, and I want you to fill in the blanks. And again, we're practicing your academic listening skills. Let's do it. And let me move my big fat head. Okay. Yeah, let me see if I can get that a little bit nicer. Okay. All right, listen up.
Directions. Now listen to a part of a talk in an astronomy class. All right, now, geology is the study of Earth's crust and the processes that have shaped its surface throughout history. Heat escaping from the interior provides energy for the formation of our planet's mountains, valleys, volcanoes, and even the continents and ocean basins themselves. But not until the middle of the 20th century did geologists succeed in understanding just how these landforms are created. Now, plate tectonics is a theory that explains how slow motions within the mantle of Earth move large segments of crust, resulting in a gradual drifting of the continents, as well as the formation of mountains and other large-scale geological features. Plate tectonics is a concept as basic to geology as evolution by natural selection is to biology, or gravity is to understanding the orbits of planets. Looking at it from a different perspective, plate tectonics is a mechanism for Earth to transport heat efficiently from the interior, where it has accumulated, out to space. It is a cooling system for the planet. All planets develop a heat transfer process as they evolve. Mechanisms may differ from that on Earth as a result of chemical makeup and other constraints.
All right.
Question.
Very exciting stuff, I'm sure. So let me give you the answers to these. Hopefully you were able to fill this out. I'm just going to give you the answers, and I'm going to put them up right now. Okay, make sure I don't put the wrong one up like I did last time. Study of the Earth's crust. So I like to give examples of these fill in the blanks, sometimes with one word, sometimes with a phrase, like geological features for number 5. Or a different perspective, because a lot of times we link words together, and that's a good way to practice your listening for linking words together. Okay, formation succeed. Now you might ask, does spelling count? Well, again, this is not a TOEFL test, and this is not what on the TOEFL. There's a similar type of question in the Duolingo English test, and spelling does count in that type of situation. So yeah, it depends on the situation. It's up to you to decide if you think spelling counts or not. All right, so you're doing great. Let me give you some applause. Do I have this? No, I don't have it. Oh, there it is. Yay. 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 You guys are doing great. Okay. Let's keep going. And so we're going to go to the next short lecture. This is lecture number 2, and this will be the last one as well. Okay. Same style. What we're going to do first is that I'm going to play a short passage 3 times. And I want you to try to write down everything you hear. You can put in the chat. I see people putting things in the chat. That's awesome. Sorry I can't respond to the chat partly because of this, and partly because I can't do 2 things at once on the screen. So let me play this. This will be the first time. And here we go.
The best documented large impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of what is now called the Cretaceous period of geological history.
Okay. Let's listen again. Second time. If you wrote all this down and got it all correct and you put it in the chat, that's amazing the first time, because I cannot do that. So be patient. And also, you're going to have to spell some tricky words. Here's second time.
The best documented large impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of what is now called the Cretaceous period of geological history.
One more time.
The best documented large impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of what is now called the Cretaceous period of geological history.
Okay. Try to write everything down. And I'm sure there's one word that's driving you crazy. Cretaceous period. Now, I would not be able to spell this. So it's just fun little practice. Don't worry if you have the dash or not. The best documented large impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of what is now called the Cretaceous period of geological history. Yeah, so that's that. Hard, difficult. Don't beat yourself up too much if it feels too hard. It's a little difficult. Let's see the next one. One more. Here we go. We're going to play it 3 times. And here we go.
This time in the history of life on Earth was marked by a mass extinction in which more than half of the species on our planet died out.
A happy topic. Okay, let's listen again.
Geological history. This time in the history of life on Earth was marked by a mass extinction in which more than half of the species on our planet died out.
All right. Let's listen one more time.
Geological history. This time in the history of life on Earth was marked by a mass extinction in which more than half of the species on our planet died out.
All right. How did you do? I'll give somebody a minute to type it in the chat, see if anybody wants to show off their skills. Okay. This time in the history of life on Earth was marked by a mass extinction in which more than half of the species of our planet died out. So I think you could have done this. The vocabulary, I think extinction is probably the hardest one. But let me know, how was it? Could you do it? Let me know. Let's go to the short lecture. I am going to disappear magically, and I will play this passage. Take notes if you like. Totally up to you. Again, this is not TOEFL, okay? This is just practicing your academic listening skills. IELTS, PTE, whatever. You struggle with listening, this is how you practice, okay? Here we go. And let me play it.
Directions. Now listen to a part of a talk in an astronomy class. So the best documented large impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of what is now called the Cretaceous period of geological history. This time in the history of life on Earth was marked by a mass extinction in which more than half of the species on our planet died out. There have been a dozen or more mass extinctions in the geological record, but this particular event, nicknamed the Great Dying, has always intrigued paleontologists because it marks the end of the dinosaur age. For tens of millions of years, these great creatures had flourished and dominated. Then they suddenly disappeared, and thereafter mammals began the development and diversification that ultimately led to all of us. Now, the object that collided with Earth at the end of the Cretaceous period struck a shallow sea in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Its mass must have been more than 1 trillion tons, determined from study of a worldwide layer of sediment deposited from the dust cloud that enveloped the planet after its impact. First identified in 1979, this sediment layer is rich in the rare metal iridium and other elements that are relatively abundant in asteroids and comets, but exceedingly rare in Earth's crust. Now, even though it was diluted by the material that the explosion excavated from the surface of Earth, this cosmic component can still be identified. In addition, this layer of sediment contains many minerals characteristic of the temperatures and pressures of a gigantic explosion. Question.
Okay, so that is the passage. Keep in mind, if you do something like the IELTS or something like that, you can see the questions while you're listening. TOEFL, you don't. I'm not sure about PTE, but for this practice, we're not looking at them. So you have to have a good memory or take some notes. So true or false? Here we go. First one. Number 1. There has been only one mass extinction in Earth's history. You have 15 seconds. Number 2. Mammals dominated the earth prior to the Great Dying. All right, number 3. There. Geologists found evidence of extraterrestrial materials in Earth's crust. All right, so let's go to the multiple choice questions. There are 2. These are similar to what you might see on a test like the TOEFL. Okay, what is the lecture mainly about? Got 30 seconds. All right, and the next one. Why does the professor mention that this event is nicknamed the Great Dying? 30 seconds. All right, and that's that. So I will go over the answers in a couple minutes. I'm going to do this fill in the blank practice next, which is going to be we're going to listen to the passage again, and I want you to fill in the blanks with the word you think is appropriate. Again, could be one word, could be multiple words, and going to practice your listening skills. All right, here we go. This is the last one, by the way, last activity. So if you made it to the end, amazing. One last thing to do. Here we go.
Directions. Now listen to a part of a talk in an astronomy class. So, the best documented large impact took place 65 million years ago at the end of what is now called the Cretaceous period of geological history. This time in the history of life on Earth was marked by a mass extinction in which more than half of the species on our planet died out. There have been a dozen or more mass extinctions in the geological record, but this particular event, nicknamed the Great Dying, has always intrigued paleontologists because it marks the end of the dinosaur age. For tens of millions of years, these great creatures had flourished and dominated. Then they suddenly disappeared, and thereafter mammals began the development and diversification that ultimately led to all of us. Now, the object that collided with Earth at the end of the Cretaceous period struck a shallow sea in what is now the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Its mass must have been more than 1 trillion tons, determined from study of a worldwide layer of sediment deposited from the dust cloud that enveloped the planet after its impact. First identified in 1979, this sediment layer is rich in the rare metal iridium and other elements that are relatively abundant in asteroids and comets, but exceedingly rare in Earth's crust. Now, even though it was diluted by the material that the explosion excavated from the surface of Earth, this cosmic component can still be identified. In addition, this layer of sediment contains many minerals characteristic of the temperatures and pressures of a gigantic explosion. Question.
Okay, so that is that. Hopefully, that also helps you understand the correct answers to the questions that came before. That's the kind of goal. If you are still here, amazing. Thank you. We're going to go over the answers together. I want to check in the chat, see what you guys are asking, and then I'm going to go over the answers right now. So I just need to kind of play with my screen really quickly. People putting answers, good. Some people are saying, we'll practice on Snapchat or something. That's cool. Yeah, make friends. Find some things to do together. Always helpful to have a study partner. All right, let me try to share my screen and look at the comments at the same time. Okay, so let's try this one. Yeah, that might work. Sure. Kinda work. No, that's not gonna work. That needs to be better. Whatever. You guys will deal with it. Sorry, I got to do this correctly. So, man, this is annoying. Next time I'll be better at this, I promise. It's my first time doing live in a while. All right, so I'll have to just get this out of the way. Maybe that'll be better. Ooh, that might work. That might work. All right. That's gonna work. Thank you, Patricia. Someone said I'm awesome. I appreciate that. That really helps my ego. So let me go to the answers here. And so from the first one, true or false, geologists understood how landforms were created. That was false because it said it wasn't until the 20th century. And here it says the 17th century. So this is a popular thing they do on TOEFL and some other tests is that they change the dates, they change the times. Number 2, true. Plate tectonics is a foundational concept in the study of geology. That's true. It said in the passage. I highlighted the part from the passage, and let me get my head out of the way. Move head. Okay, so plate tectonics is a concept basic to geology as evolution is to natural selection. 3, planets transfer heat the same way as Earth. This is false. All planets develop a heat transfer process as they evolve, and their mechanisms may differ from that of Earth. I don't see anybody who has a question in the chat about this. I'm going to move on. If you have a question while I'm talking about this, let me know. But that's the answers. Those are the answers. Next part, multiple choice. What is the lecture mainly about? This is B, the role of plate tectonics. So a lot of times in lectures, when they ask you this kind of like main idea question, the wrong choices are usually details. So like they're difficult because they're in the passage, but what the passage is about is usually spread out over the entire thing. So that's what makes kind of main idea questions tricky because like, oh, I heard them talking about drifting continents. I heard them talking about how heat is transferred, but that's not really the main idea. It's talking about how plate tectonics plays an important role on Earth. The second question is an inference question. So this is where you have to kind of make a guess about what the speaker meant. This is a TOEFL question. It's not on the IELTS as far as I know. Maybe somebody could tell me if it is. This is a really just a kind of TOEFL thing. And I can let me play that little excerpt again. It'll just take 10 seconds.
Plate tectonics is a concept as basic to geology as evolution by natural selection is to biology, or gravity is to understanding the orbits of planets.
So what does the professor imply by that little comment? That it's a fundamental part of geology. She's saying that, and let me go to the transcript here. So plate tectonics is a concept as basic to geology as evolution is. So she's just basically saying that this is something, a core foundational thing that's part of geology. So that's why that's correct. All right, let's go to part 2. And again, I don't see questions, so I'm just going to keep going. Ask me questions and I'll answer anything you like. I'll try my best. There has been only one mass extinction in Earth's history. This is false. In the passage, it says there are a dozen or more mass extinctions in the geological record. So that's false. Number 2, mammals dominated the Earth prior to the Great Dying. That is false. At least they don't say that. It says for tens of millions of years, these great creatures, which were dinosaurs, had flourished and dominated. Then they suddenly disappeared, and thereafter mammals began to develop and diversify. So the mammals came after, not prior to, the Great Dying. What a wonderful name, by the way. Great Dying. Geologists found evidence of extraterrestrial materials in Earth's crust. This is true. So if you don't know the word extraterrestrial, that makes this question really hard. This is something you could do, like if you knew about root words, like for example, extra means, something, I think extra, like additional or outside of. And terra is usually for like an earth. So outside of Earth, extraterrestrial, you could kind of figure out what it means if you knew about root words. I don't recommend them. I used to recommend them a lot, but not as much anymore. But so it just means outside of the Earth, right? And this is true because they say it's first identified in 1979. This sediment was rich in iridium, and these are in asteroids and comets, but rare on Earth's crust. So that's the true or false questions. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me check the chat really quickly. So Fahima has a question about the speaking section, which is, I'll just answer this really quickly. Can we see the reading passage while we're answering? And the answer is no. In the speaking section of the TOEFL, you do not see the reading when you're speaking. In the writing, you do, for the integrated writing, but in the speaking, you don't. Would the teacher need extra practice coaching? Okay. Nelson Mandela is in the chat. We're honored, and he needs a teacher to help him practice. So this isn't enough for him. So if anybody wants to help him, let him know. Okay, multiple choice. Moving on. 2 more left, and then the fill in the blank. This was the lecture mainly about. This is D, the causes of mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous period. So let me read what it says here. This is the kind of answer key. D is the most correct. So this is where TOEFL in particular gets really tricky, because they can give you answers that look correct, that could be correct, but there's one that's just more correct, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so it encompasses both the first passage about the mass extinction and the cause of extinction in the second paragraph. So it's more taking everything together. If you remember, I mentioned it before, what makes these main idea questions tricky is that there's information that was in the passage, but it's a detail or it's not the main idea. All right. Number 2, why does the professor mention that this event is nicknamed the Great Dying? And B, to emphasize that this extinction event was much more drastic than others. So that is B. And I guess this is kind of like common sense, it's called the Great Dying. Ooh, it sounds bad. So to emphasize that this extinction event was much more drastic, that makes sense, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's B. Somebody is asking, why not A, please? Why not A for which one? What are you talking about? This one here? The extinction of dinosaurs. So why isn't it A? Okay, so and let's look at the cause of the mass extinction. So one is about the cause of the extinction, and one is about the extinction of dinosaurs. So if you look here, it talks about was marked by a mass extinction. There are a dozen or more mass extinctions, and has always. So this is pretty much setting up the idea of mass extinctions, that there's a bunch in history, and that one that people always talk about is the one that killed the dinosaurs, the Great Dying. So the choice D, the cause of the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous period, is a bit closer to what this is about, because it's not really about dinosaurs. It's about what caused the extinction of dinosaurs. A very small difference, but it does matter. And it's not a bad answer. There's some truth to it, but D is just a better answer because it's not about the extinction of dinosaurs. It's about what caused it. Yeah, so that's why. I don't know if that makes you happy or not, but that's what I got for you. So this one is B, okay. And then somebody says, how about C? Well, how about C? Why does the professor mention that this event is nicknamed the Great Dying? To show that everything has a scientific name. So this word, I would be very careful whenever you see a word like this, everything or always or nothing, that has like 100% or 0%. Usually that's not correct, because it's too strong of a word, especially in academic stuff. It's usually, sometimes that's a better modifier than always. It's kind of not rare, but it's not so common in academic literature. And like this is an inference question, so you could really infer a lot. I mean, you could kind of infer anything. That maybe he's inferring that it show that not everything has a scientific name. That would make more sense if the topic was about names that are not scientific. Just in this context, we can't really make that inference. So yeah, that's why C doesn't really work out. Okay, he said, I got it. I guess I'm talking too long. He's like, all right, shut up, can move on. Okay, so let me do that. And let me go to the last one, which is here. And so we have geological history, mass extinctions, diversification thereafter, impact was diluted, be identified, and gigantic explosion. So hopefully by the time you get to this point where you're doing this like fill in the blank thing, that you know this passage really well. If you notice, we've done 3 or 4 different activities with this one very short 1-minute passage. The goal is to get you to look at this 1-minute passage very deeply, to help you kind of learn this academic vocabulary. Cretaceous period. I'm sure, probably you haven't really encountered that before. This is geology, it's talking about layers of sediment, diversification. Taking a close look, use this session to give you an idea of how to practice at home. If you like these, if you like this type of style, let me know in the comments. I'll do more. I just don't know if people actually like this or not. Most people want practice, so I figured I'd just kind of make a practice session, and with some practice that is helps you for TOEFL, but not exactly TOEFL. So this is academic reading, I'll do academic reading next week, and then academic listening this week. So I'll leave it as an open forum. Somebody asked here, do you have some tips for us to remember each important points from the listening? Let me see here. Hold on one second. Okay, I can share it here. Let me see if I can do that. Yeah, there we go. Do you have some tips for us to remember each important points from the listening session so it'll be easier to answer the questions right word? Okay, so basically Defy is asking, what should I write down? How do I know what's important? And it's hard for me to say exactly. You don't know. Just so you know, true or false questions don't show up in the TOEFL listening. So usually in the TOEFL listening, they ask you questions that are about the kind of topic in general and not about specific details. So I wouldn't worry too much about remembering all the details. In general, when you're listening, just write down nouns and verbs, maybe some adjectives. You don't want to write down articles. Like if it said, I like pizza, you wouldn't write down, I like pizza. You would write down pizza. And then, you would try to find words that will help trigger your memory when you're answering the question. So that's what I would do, is that I would try to find words that help trigger my memory. And that'll help you through practice and doing just more practice. And you'll find which words are helpful, which kind of note-taking style is helpful. Let's see here. Jigme asked, do we only have 30 seconds for each question and listening? For TOEFL, there's no limit on the time for, okay. So there's a time limit. It's about 30 seconds per question, but you're in control of the time. So you can take 30 seconds or you can take 2 seconds. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. Yeah, so for TOEFL, it doesn't matter. For other tests, let's see here. IELTS, maybe? I don't know if anybody knows about IELTS. Listening, I don't remember it. Time is an issue, but yeah, I don't think it's that big of an issue for listening, at least. Usually people have a harder time with reading time management, because listening, after you listen and you're answering the questions, either you heard the answer or you didn't. So yeah, for IELTS, for example, you're listening and you're looking at the questions and you really don't have time to answer because you have to listen to the next one. For TOEFL, you will have time after the listening to answer each question. It's about 30 to 45 seconds, but you usually don't need too much time. That's that. Manuela, did I say that right? I like this practice. Great. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And I will, I'll do more if people like it. Let's see here. Yeah. So Charles C., thank you. Kind words. I appreciate that. Mulana, send me your number. I don't know if you're talking to me, but yeah, that's, can't do that. Let's see here. Riyadh, what happened to your hand, bro? Yeah, I broke a finger. I started a new hobby, which is jujitsu, and I am not very good at it. And I get my ass kicked every time I go in there, and broke my finger. Now I have this silly thing. Youssef says IELTS listening is easy compared to TOEFL. I agree. IELTS listening is a bit easier, especially if it's general. Even academic, I thought, I took the IELTS last week. I thought it was pretty easy. Hi, I really liked it. Thank you. Good. And I'll answer this one question. I want to improve in reading. The time is a problem for me. Well, tune in next week. I will do a reading practice, and you can see the kind of style of reading practice that I do with students. But so a lot of times when people are preparing for the TOEFL, they only do TOEFL practice. And so the thing is that sometimes you need to develop skills, like you need to develop your speed, for example. In that situation, you should take little pieces of like a passage and then try to answer a question in 30 seconds or 60 seconds and do some practice with time like that. So you know what your problem is, which is good. Some people don't know what their problem is. So your problem is time management. Figure out a way to use practice materials to help you manage that time. One thing that I do with students who want to practice with TOEFL is that I will give them a TOEFL reading passage and the questions. And instead of giving them 18 minutes, like you would for one passage in TOEFL reading, I'll give them 25 minutes. So you don't worry about time. So focus on reading and understanding. Then let's do another one. Let's try 24 minutes this time and slowly build that skill. And then over time, if they start feeling comfortable with 18 minutes, I'm like, okay, try to do this in 15 minutes. And then, just try to, so then like 15 minutes, but I have 18 minutes. Yeah, but try to do it in less time. So, there's different ways you can go about it, but that's one way that I work with students. Yeah, so hopefully that's clear. I'm going to wrap things up there. And thank you for chiming in. Please comment, share, like, all that good stuff. It really does help. Thank you guys. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.